Welcome to Dodgers Dogs. As part of the Dodgers Daily Network, Casey Porter here, joined by Austin Brubaker, who is in Arizona. And hey, the audio is not going to be exactly the way it normally is, and the screen might move a little bit. That's because you're in your hotel room with your aunt. Is that who you said?
No, with my dad.
With your dad. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So we have Austin
Welcome to
Dodgers Dogs as part of the Dodgers Daily Network. Casey Porter here,
tell us all about what he has
Austin
seen
Brubaker, who is
so
far at spring training. You got to see the game today. The Cat Man, he looked good. You got to see the Maytag Jack Dreyer. You got to see Ben Casparius. You got to see the first look at Luis Garcia. So an exciting day, Austin. Take it over.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been really exciting day. So my dad and I are on this trip, which he's actually not in the hotel room. He might just pop in at some point. I've got my phone in my hand, so I apologize for a little bit of the shakiness for the volume. We only had a carry-on item, so it was the clothes and the stuff that we absolutely needed made the trip. So none of the more expensive stuff was able to make it. Flew down here on Wednesday early morning. And then went to the Grand Canyon on Wednesday, which was absolutely beautiful. Got to take that in. Thursday, opening day, baseball is back. Got a chance to go to the spring training facility for the first time, which was really remarkable to be able to do that. It was a really good experience being able to take that in. And what some of the most fun parts about it, we'll get into some of the game action. We'll get to a little bit of analyzing stuff. Some of my most favorite parts that I got to do was going on the backfields and stuff, which you get there and they open up the facility at 9 o'clock. You can go in and look at all the fields, which there's a large grouping of people that were waiting for everybody to walk on out, try to get some autographs, take a look. I know there was one point when Freddie Freeman came out and everybody was celebrating and super happy because obviously big part on the Dodgers and hit the home run in the World Series. But if you move a little bit on the other side, you can walk across the path a little bit. What's really cool about there is they give you access to the minor league facilities as well, and you get to go watch a little bit of the backfield. So that was the coolest thing because I went back there, got to interact with Austin Chubb, former manager of Great Lakes, 21, 22.
Yeah,
does a lot of stuff. He was moving all sorts of facilities, but he stopped, talked to me for a couple of minutes. Got to there was some batting practice sessions with Nelson Quiros, Frank Rodriguez, and Yander Fernandez, and got to go and interact with them for a little bit. Got to talk to T.Y. and Sean McClain. They were in a batting practice section together.
Hey, Sean got to play in the big field.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, actually, when I was talking to Chubb, he was the first person I interacted with. He's like, yeah, DePaula and Hope are going to be on the big field. McClain's going to be on the big field. He was telling me all about it a couple hours beforehand. It was really cool to be able to have that interaction back there, which there's not a lot of people that go back there because most people want to go and watch the big league club. But if you watch Dodgers Daily and you get the chance to go to spring training, it means a lot. Go back there and watch those guys and see what's happening back there because there's a lot of good stuff that is coming up through the system right there, as we were able to see a little bit during the spring training game. So I was at the game yesterday. I was at the game today. Obviously, final result did not go the Dodgers' way. Does not matter one bit in the actual spring training games because regular season does not start until middle of March when the Dodgers will be in Japan. Still some pretty solid signs out there that I think Dodgers fans are going to be really excited about. Thursday, which I won't talk about this too much because we want to get into a little bit of the action today. Thursday being the game where Zaire Hope had a couple of really good catches out in left field, which we were sitting more closer to the left field line. So got to get a pretty good look at that. Got a couple of other hits from some of the younger guys as well. Today, Catman, Tony Gonsolin got to go in and pitch scoreless inning, which was really good to see Tony Gonsolin back in a Dodgers uniform. As we saw on the game on Thursday, things can happen really quick in the game of baseball. And I'm grateful that Bobby Miller at least seems to be okay from what happened at the game on Thursday. That was an extremely scary event. Bobby Miller seems to be okay from the game, from what happened on Thursday. I'm glad that he seems to be okay. The game of baseball can turn in an instant. And so having a guy like Tony Gonsolin be part of the staff, a guy that has had success at the big league level, I think is something that's incredibly important. And it was really good to be able to see him go out there, pitch a scoreless inning. And it sounded like, looking back at some of his stuff, which I haven't had a chance to analyze it too deep. There's only so much that you can analyze from being along the dugout on the first base side. It looked like his stuff was pretty decent enough yesterday. So got some swings and misses, which was really good to see from Tony.
Absolutely. I thought Tony Gonsolin looked very good today. His fastball, he got behind in a couple of counts, and they just saw a video of him. I can only play like short clips because otherwise I get tagged for video, for copyrighted video, and then either you can't monetize it or it'll just shut it off, all in all. So I have to go back and forth really quickly. But right here is Tony Gonsolin again. Let's flip him over, and you're seeing action here. The fastball was good right there, and he did get behind in a couple of counts. What I liked about it, he got behind like 3-1 once. He got behind, I think, 2-0 once. And his fastball was good enough, even behind in the counts, to get by hitters. And we saw his split finger fastball a couple different times, and it was really nice. See, there's a fastball right there on a 3-1 count. It was a hitter's count, and yes, that's a nice play. Wardo, that a boy. We'll get into Wardo here in a minute. Wardo had a rough day in terms of missing that pop-up. Made up for it today with a nice catch and a base hit up the middle. But then you see right there that nice little slider, and then so he had the slider going, and then he also had that pitch right there, the split finger. So Tony Gonsolin's fastball was good enough to get by hitters, even in hitters' counts. His slider was turning left very well. His split finger fastball was what it always is, and he was doing it all with strikes. I thought Tony Gonsolin was extra sharp today. I thought he was really good.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of incredibly positive signs that we saw from Tony Gonsolin. Let's face it, if Tony Gonsolin is healthy, unless there is absolutely zero room on this club, he's going to be in the major leagues for the Dodgers. So fully expecting him to be part of that and to see all those different shapes and him being effective with that, even with his fastball, not the greatest velocity in the world, but still really solid. Being able to help bridge those two pitches is really important for him to be able to do. And I think he did a really excellent job today. This is a really good step for a guy who missed the entirety of last season. Great to see him back in Dodger blue. And he has showcased many times in the past that he can be incredibly valuable as a pitcher, and I fully am expecting that for him this year.
Yeah, and so there's two types of velocity. You mentioned, hey, he's not that guy that throws at 100 miles an hour, but there are two types of velocity. There is velocity, and then there's what's called perceived velocity by a hitter, right? And perceived velocity is how fast it makes it look. So imagine like picking up a bat, and like you see him do it all the time. You put a donut on the end of your bat, or you swing a weighted bat. And you do that, then you pick up your regular bat and it feels a lot lighter, right? So imagine a guy throwing a splitter at like 85, a guy throwing a slider at 87. Then all of a sudden he's 10 off of that at 94, or 8 off of that 95. That 95 looks a lot faster, right? So just because your velo is not 100 doesn't mean you can't make it look a lot faster to the hitter in terms of perceived velocity. And that's why Tony Gonsolin was able to get by bats, is because with that slider and with that splitter, he was able to give a perceived velocity that made his fastball look quite a bit faster than it was hitting on the radar gun. He is very professional at doing that.
Yeah, he's an absolute professional. He knows how to get major league hitters out, and he has showcased that for many years at this point, and it's really exciting to see him back healthy, ready to go, and it didn't seem like there's any issues for him pitching out today.
Yeah. What else struck you, Austin? You were there today. We're going to go through all of the action. I know we have some questions we're going to get to, but as far as the action that you saw live, well, what was the next thing that you went, oh, wow, that was cool?
Yeah, I mean, the next thing is one of the biggest things that you look for is look out for some of the guys that we've been talking about that have been a little bit in this system for a little bit. And just went out there and showcased. And I think one of the guys that was able to do that really well today, that a lot of Dodgers fans, especially if you don't pay attention to the minor league system, were curious as far as why the Dodgers saw something in this guy and added him to the 40-man roster during the offseason. But there's a reason why he was able to do that. And Dodgers fans, if you have not had a chance to watch him in the minor leagues, got a chance to watch the Maytag Jack Dreyer go out there and really provide a lot of relief. There's been a lot of scoring that has been done by the Chicago offense against the Dodgers, and he went out there and, like he does all the time, put a stop to that and was able to go out there and pitch a scoreless inning. That was incredibly cool to be able to watch him go out there and have some success like he normally has, and was moving the stuff around pretty well today.
Yeah, did you get any velo numbers on him? I know he's he's thinking that as he goes on, of course, he had Tommy John and shoulder surgery at Iowa. That's why he was an undrafted free agent, because he just wasn't healthy. Yes. And so the velo has been a steady climb. He's hoping to be able to sit at 96 whenever he gets totally healthy and totally ready to go for the major leagues. Did you get any velo numbers today off of him?
I didn't get any velos on him. So that was one of those things where I was trying to keep a lookout for it. Just totally forgot on Jack.
Yeah, typically speaking, Dreyer, he has that nice changeup. He hides the ball extremely well.
Yes.
He's somewhere around 93, 94, 95. He can hit 96. There are nights to where he has a little extra adrenaline. He can sit 95, 96. So very, very impressive, Jack Dreyer. That was a lot of fun to watch. So where else are we going to go here with the game today, Austin?
Yeah, let's continue with the two guys that closed out the game for the Dodgers. The two closing pieces were remarkable. It was swing and miss stuff for both Carlos Duran and Chris Campos. That was super fun to be able to watch. Let's start with Duran. Because he came in the 8th inning, and he's got that slider is ridiculous, man. And he was the one that was throwing the most heat, that seemed to be throwing some of the most heat too.
He's bigger too.
He's bigger. Was sitting at least 96, I think, is what I saw on the radar gun, or at least the stadium radar gun that I saw. I don't know what it was on TV or what the StatCast numbers were for him, but it was throwing velo, and he was able to go out there and get some swing and miss too, which I know happens. Yeah, I know happens later in the game, but look at that pitch right there. That is ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
He goes out there and he can strike some guys out. Carlos Duran had been out for a little bit, but he is back, and I think you're going to hear his name quite a bit if you're a Dodger fan.
Yeah, so let's watch this sequence one more time. So to a lefty, here you go. Watch this cutter in on the hands. Boom, right there. That is a sweet little looking cutter right there. Now watch this changeup. Watch this right turn to a lefty. See this ball turn right there. That is a big-time changeup off of that cutter. So you saw the left turn, you saw the right turn. Well, what about the high-riding fastball? From a 6'7" frame, how about that right there? Get you some of that. So Carlos Duran showing you the left turn, showing you the right turn, showing you the high-riding fastball, all out of a 6'7" frame, and from a young man that can control his different tempos. Talking about his windup, there he is, a good look at Carlos Duran. He can kind of hesitate in his windup to throw the hitter's timing off. There's a nice slider there. And so he is a young man who has been a big prospect in the Dodgers system for a long time, but he had Tommy John surgery before that. He was injured even before that, probably leading up to that Tommy John. And so finally last year, about halfway through, he got healthy again. And I went on Clint's show, and the first name was out of my mouth was, I think Carlos Duran is maybe the most eminent guy that you've never heard of that might make the Major League debut this year. I have not backed off of that. You saw it today. The stuff was big.
Yeah, this stuff was nasty. His stuff is ridiculous from that frame that he's able to go out there. It's ridiculous. And it was apparent that he's a guy that the Dodgers very well at some point throughout the season could call upon. He is that type of guy. And he's one of those guys that got mentioned when we were talking about Rule 5 draft potential shows. His name got brought up, and for good reason, not just by our show, but other shows as well, because the stuff is ridiculous. And I think a lot of teams are going to regret not taking a closer look at him and potentially giving him a shot if there is an opportunity for the Dodgers to be able to utilize him in any type of game activity this year, which is going to be tough given this roster. But if there is, he's one of those guys that, especially if he showcases and has a lot of success early this season, that could be utilized, whether it's a short inning relief where he's allowed to maximize his stuff, or whether he's a little bit more bulk inning type of guy. He's been a guy that can get multiple innings out. I think that is valuable to be able to have that, but his stuff is good to be able to do in shorter spurts as well.
So I've actually had a chance to talk to Carlos Duran. This was before his Tommy John, like in 2022. And I asked, he's been at both a starter and a reliever, and the question was when the Dodgers signed him out of the DR, was he going to be a starter? Was he going to be a reliever? I asked him that question, and he point blank said, no, I'm a starter. And of course, that was way back when. Well, actually, what you find out in an organization that has this much talent, you're whatever the heck they need you to be, because you take advantage of every opportunity you can get. So I say that to say He can pitch in any role. So even if he is relief, he's another guy that can be, let's not say starter reliever. Let's just say bulk inning guy. Carlos Duran can cut down what I call bulk innings.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. He can go out there. If he needs just one inning, he can do that. He needs 4 innings out of Carlos Duran. I think he could go out and do that as well. He's that capable of doing that, and his stuff is so unique to where he can go through a lineup more than once if needed.
Yeah, totally agree. So I think I know where you're going next, but take me there. I'm going to put it up on the board right here.
Yeah, I mean, you talking about a closer to the night, and it was funny when he was walking out. It was I'm trying to. I think I know who that is because you're a little ways away. Which actually funny because yesterday at the Camelback Ranch, it wasn't announced, I don't think, correctly when Ryan Sublett went in. But I told my dad.
It was not.
Yeah.
We were the only ones that got it right here on Dodgers Daily.
I leaned over. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's Ryan Sublett. Of course, he doesn't know all the guys, and it was like, okay, I guess that wasn't him. And then like later when I saw your tweet about it, it was like, oh wait, that was him.
Yeah.
And so then when Campos came out there, it was oh man, I think I know who that is. And then they announced it. It was like, oh man, this is going to be sweet to be able to watch. And then just see him go out there and exact same thing as Duran did. He had a lot of success, was able to get a lot of swing and miss, was able to locate his pitches. I think that's one of the things that he's able to do well is he's really effective when he's able to go ahead and locate his pitches, something he did incredibly well through the minor leagues last year, which he had a really good rise throughout the system last year. This is one of those guys that earned the opportunity to go out and pitch in spring training, and you got a chance to see him today. It was really fun to be able to go out there, see him have some success too, and pitch with confidence. That's so fun to watch.
Yeah, he has a ton of confidence. There's no doubt about it. So Chris Campos, he revolves everything around his fastball. Don't get me wrong. And I got a kick out of listening to Tim Neverett and the national treasure Rick Monday talk about Campos because they're like, holy smokes, this dude's got some gas, man. I mean, they're like, and Tim was like, man, this dude's like, he's bringing some gas. I mean, he was like shocked. And so the story behind Chris Campos this time last offseason, as you see him pitch here, he actually went back home, lived with his parents. Him and his dad built a mound in their backyard. And then Chris started watching videos. One of them, I think, was Trevor Bauer on how to, do the grip on the slider and how to sequence and all those kinds of things. So he did a lot of study online, like on YouTube, about how to grip his slider and then about how to sequence. And so he pretty much learned all this on his own, went in his backyard, pitched in the mound that him and his dad built, threw into a net, and started just learning all these sequences that he had learned about on YouTube. I mean, this is like legitimately what happened. If you don't believe me, just go back to the conversation we had, like in June or whatever. Okay, so going all the way back to his, I don't want to say the names in high schools, but he was out of high school. His high school coach told him that he's too small to be a Division I player. And so that really didn't sit very well with Campos because Campos knew better. And Campos does not take the word no or, hey, you can't do something very lightly. That just pisses him off. That motivates him. That puts him into a different gear to prove you wrong. So he actually transferred high schools, okay, for, I believe, both his junior and senior years. Don't exactly quote me for that. It may have been just his senior year, but I think it was both his junior and senior years. Guess what? Got a Division I scholarship to St. Mary's, became the starting shortstop at St. Mary's for all of his career at St. Mary's. Did not pitch hardly at all. And I, usually in college, I'm very familiar with this. If you remember the name Jordy Mercer, Austin, the shortstop for the Pirates, he went to Oklahoma State. I actually got to coach him while he was in Oklahoma in the Sooner State games from Tologa, Oklahoma. Jordy actually was from such a small school that they don't even have athletics anymore. I mean, it's like there's like 2 or 3 kids per class. That's it. At Tologa, Oklahoma. That's how small of a school he had. So Jordy Mercer went to OSU, and Jordy Mercer played shortstop, just like Chris Campos did. And like in the 7th, 8th inning, every time the coach would come out to the mound, they would bring a ball, and Jordy would play catch with the third baseman or the second baseman because he was also the closer, right? So I asked Chris Campos if he went through this. Hey, every time, 7th, 8th inning, did your coach bring a ball out and you had to play catch? He said, no, I didn't even do that. I mean, he didn't even get really that experience pitching-wise in college. And so the Dodgers saw his athletic ability. They saw what you saw today, Austin, that cool confidence that he carries. I mean, this is one cool cat, man. This is a kid that knows how to carry himself with confidence, but it not be arrogant, that type of deal where it just rubs you the wrong way. It's a cool confidence, right? And so the Dodgers saw that. They saw the arm talent. They saw the athletic ability with a kid like River Ryan. It's River Ryan all over again. Okay, it's the River Ryan story on the field. They saw the athletic ability, the arm talent, transition to pitcher. Then it's the Gavin Stone story that he was told that he was too little to ever be anything. That pissed him off. And because of that, it has been a motivating factor for him to get better and better and better. Then last offseason, he put it together with all of his sequencing in his mound in his backyard. And lo and behold, about June of this year, I went and watched him 2 or 3 times live, and it was like, dude, this guy owns his sequencing better than anybody. And when you own your own sequencing, like you know what pitches you want to throw and you're on the same page with the catcher, when you're owning that, then you're going to execute better because you're bought into it more. So that's what you're seeing with Chris Campos, is a young man that is owning his sequencing so much that he's able to maximize everything he does because he's so bought into every pitch that he throws.
Yeah, I remember seeing him early in Great Lakes last year quite a bit, and it was because he just got called up from Rancho to start the season in Great Lakes, and it was pretty apparent early that things were vastly different and improved for Campos coming into Great Lakes. It was amazing to be able to watch, to see his progress, and to hear about the journey that he has been on. This is something that you get to hear from a lot of different players within the system, is a journey that the Dodgers are able to do, and the way that they're able to develop these guys. Take a guy who was told that he was not going to be a pitcher, and now he's going out and dominating in a Dodgers uniform. That's incredibly cool to be able to go and witness a story like that. His sequencing, as you had mentioned, is remarkable. How he's able to go out there, and the confidence that he's able to go out there. It is evident by the way he does that. And he's also one of these guys that can go out there. If he needs 1 inning, he can do 1 inning, but he can do bulk innings as well. Go out there and get multiple innings. So that's another really good positive thing. Both Duran and Campos going out bulk innings. Really cool to see.
Yeah. 100%. So not only was he told he wasn't going to be a pitcher, he was told he just wasn't going to be big enough to be a Division I player. And he was like, to hell with that. I'm going to prove that wrong. And kind of an interesting backstory, Michael Hobbs, old Hobbsy, who just got taken in the Rule 5 draft by the Mets. Mm-hmm. Hobbsy actually was the closer on the team that Chris Campos was the shortstop. Campos. It's actually Campos. I've asked him that question because I kept hearing people say Campos, including broadcasters, and it's not Campos. I asked him, that's the first thing I asked him, is it Campos or Campos? Because that was pissing me off because I just kept hearing it different. And he said, "Oh, it's Campos. Trust me, it's Campos." So,
he's one of those guys I can never remember which way it's pronounced.
Yeah. So really cool story for him. Hey, another guy, Austin, that and I know that neither you or I are familiar with, but he got to pitch today. I have had a question about him. Let me throw him up on the board. This is Luis Garcia. Nice little tight cutter / slider. You got to see him in the middle innings of today. Now, let me warn people, there's Mookie Betts, who has been very good to this point. I've got to flip back and forth quite a bit so I don't get tagged for copyright. There's the fastball up in the zone. You just saw the bullet type of slider. So Luis Garcia, here's what I want to caution. It was not a very good performance for him today. It was rough. So I get to see a lot. You do, well, you don't really, Austin, but I get to see a whole lot of what are called rehab outings, like Walker Buehler gets hurt or Bobby Miller. They come down to Clayton Kershaw's done it 4 or 5 times. They come to Oklahoma City and they have rehab outings. Now, understand in these rehab outings, there's no game plan. There's no scouting report. Literally, it's dumbed down to just stay healthy, right?
Yeah.
And so I warn people, Luis Garcia has so much major league experience. And yes, he is fighting for a roster spot. So this is going to sound a little bit kind of far-fetched. But I just warn people with guys like Luis Garcia that maybe struggle in a spring training game. There's most likely underlying reasons that were simplified the scouting report, didn't allow him to throw a certain pitch. He was told to, hey, make sure and throw strikes in the middle part of the play, or whatever it may be. The sequencing was such to where it wasn't complicated, so it was easy for the hitters to know what was coming. I'm just almost sure there was something like that. I don't know Luis Garcia well enough, but I caution, don't use the results as your judge on him, because I'm sure there's underlying reasons why the results happened. They did that way. But I will say this about him: major league experience, minor league contract, we call that a quad A guy. Just think Dinelson Lamet, think Nabil Crismont, think Eduardo Salazar, all guys that if the Dodgers needed somebody for 4 or 5 days, they call it what Brent Honeywell was supposed to be, but he pitched so well that they couldn't do this. So that quad A guy, major league experience, minor league contract, if you need somebody for 4 or 5 days, you call him up, you throw him in the lineup, and then once whoever it is gets healthy, then you DFA him. And I think that's exactly what Luis Garcia provides for this organization. Another one of those quad A guys.
Yes, and it's an important reminder to use caution with these spring training games. Don't just look at the box score and say, "Oh, this guy," which he did give up, I believe, 3 runs today. Don't just use that as the sole conclusion to how good a player is. It is still spring training. It is still an extremely small sample size to be able to do that, and you don't know necessarily the progression of where these guys are at, coming back, making sure that they're ready to go for the season. That's in part what these guys are trying to do. They're trying to make sure not just to go ahead and get all these guys out and get it over with, but to make sure that they have the tools necessary to be able to do that through the regular season. And we know the Dodgers, they're going to need guys throughout the season to be able to go and fill in and just give a couple of different outings and then potentially be able to designate them for assignment, or they could stick at the big league level like an Anthony Banda was able to do, like they've done with several other relievers that they've brought in, maybe not had the highest expectations for. And with him, I think it's one of those guys that has a lot of big league experience, knows how to get it done at the big league level, and I have full expectation that he's going to turn it around. And then the Dodgers are, depending on what their needs are, could potentially give him an opportunity. So I'm not going to write him out just because of this one spring training outing, which, albeit, did not go his way.
Yeah, and I can tell you, it's kind of sad. It really kind of, I don't know. It's frustrating, kind of. I mean, but it's just kind of sad. Is that like Justin Jarvis? I've had probably 25 direct messages in whatever social media platform, different social media platforms, about this guy's why the Dodgers. I'm like, it's one spring training outing. First of all, I don't know who Justin Jarvis is. He was in the International League in AAA. He was not in the Texas League in AA. You got to see him in 2021 when he was with Wisconsin, the Timber Rattlers. But I guarantee you don't remember it, right? I mean, that was 2021, and he was playing for a different team. Why the heck would you remember a guy named Justin Jarvis? So I don't know anything about the guy. I know he struggled in spring training, but I also know there's a reason why the Dodgers decided to sign him. And so they saw something in him. And here's what I will say to that. What I always say is, who in the heck am I to tell the Dodgers and Jack Murphy and Jonah Rosenthal and all these, Tom Kunis and all these incredible baseball people, who am I to say that this guy's not any good when they are the ones who picked this guy out, right? So, I mean, the DMs that I get are just, it's just like, my gosh, are you kidding me? I mean, after one outing, you're already smarter than the GM and all these pro scouts for the Dodgers who have done a pretty good job. That gets a little bit much at times.
Yeah, and it could be something where he just doesn't work out. The Dodgers signed him for a reason, and they're going based off of certain thing of information, which there are a lot of teams that have the similar or same information, but the Dodgers decided to go ahead and sign him for a particular reason because they believe that they are best suited to be able to maximize his skill set, or believe that there could be something in there. Sometimes it works out, other times it doesn't. This is one of these guys where throughout spring training, they do this with a whole bunch of guys, as you have seen already with a whole bunch of different guys that a lot of people didn't have a great familiarity with because they hadn't been through the system or they hadn't grown up with the Dodgers. These are opportunities that they're able to go ahead and showcase, and it gives these guys opportunities to be able to showcase it to other teams as well, what their skills and capabilities are. So wishing him nothing but the best, because it'd be awesome if the Dodgers got another relief pitcher out of him and all of these guys. But we'll see what happens. It's spring training. Don't overanalyze each one of the results, especially when it's a result-based approach. If it's part of the process and there's some real concern about the process, then that can be something where it's something that we address. And I'm sure we'll address certain parts of the process at some point.
Well, and don't shoot the messenger, too. I mean, it's like, first of all, I don't know near as much about any of these guys or the game of baseball or how to evaluate the game of baseball anywhere as close to Jack Murphy or Tom Kunis or Jonah Rosenthal or Andrew Freed. So, I mean, that's them, and they know that more than any of us. I mean, like, don't shoot the messenger. I mean, it's like they're mad because we cover prospects. It's like they're mad at us because a prospect didn't pitch the way they wanted to or whatever. But it's kind of an interesting dynamic. But that's kind of what I'd say to that. So we have a question here in the chat. Who has better stuff, Carlos Duran or Edgardo Henriquez? And it is easily Edgardo Henriquez. And when you can hit 104, you can throw a 94-mile-an-hour bullet slider. Now, I will say Carlos Duran has the potential right now to have quite a bit better execution. So to say Edgardo Henriquez has better stuff doesn't mean he's the better pitcher right now. If I had to go win Game 7 of a World Series, I would probably choose Carlos Duran just because I know at least as a manager I'm going to get some execution behind it. With Edgardo Henriquez, he is that bull that hasn't been broke, you know, like or that horse that hasn't been broke that you're trying to win a race with. Yeah, he might go straight, and if he does, you're going to win the race by like 2 miles, right? But then he also might take a right turn and you might end up in Alaska somewhere, and you can't stop him. That's Edgardo Henriquez right now, okay? The stuff is way better than the execution, at least it was at the end of last year. Carlos Duran doesn't have as good a stuff, but as you saw, he's able to pinpoint his slider. He's able to change shapes with his slider. He's able to change his tempos. He's able to ride the fastball in on the hands. He's able to ride it up. He's able to hit it to that 4 slot on the outer half. He's able to throw the changeup. So he's actually able to execute. So I would say Edgardo Henriquez has better just raw stuff. I would say Carlos Duran has better execution. And whenever you put it together, who's to say who the better pitcher is right now? Of course, Edgardo Henriquez is the one who got the playoff spot last year. So that's kind of what I would say to that.
Yeah, Edgardo Rodriguez stuff is ridiculous. It is absurd stuff. 104. Who does that? You hardly ever see that within the system, which I think that is one of the reasons why we would, as far as stuff wise, Edgardo Henriquez is one of those guys. That does not downplay the stuff that Duran has, because as you saw during spring training today, it was effective, and it can get a lot of hitters out. Both unique, different types of pitchers, which makes it tough to be able to do a direct comparison between the two. Both phenomenal pitchers within the system, and two great options for the Dodgers to be able to go to if they need to.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Hey, we have a huge crowd on TikTok and Instagram tonight, Austin. That's kind of fun, isn't it?
Hey, there we go. That's awesome to be able to stream to all sorts of different places. Super fun to be able to do that.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody over there on Instagram and TikTok for joining. Obviously, we have a good crowd on Facebook as well. We also are streaming live on Twitter and Facebook. So we're Twitter, Facebook, we're TikTok, we're Instagram, we are YouTube, and we have a good crowd on all of those platforms. Friday night in the big town. So, hey, where are we headed next, Austin?
Yeah, so I'll let you because offensively, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of different stuff that was able to happen during the game today. Chris Okey, I believe, is the one.
Let's do that. Let's open up Okey. Give me a second.
Let
me get you his home run. Go ahead and talk about you remember what you remember about that.
Yeah, it was one of those where, okay, it was a great moment for him. He's been a catcher within the system. I think he was the catcher last year as well at the AAA level.
Yes, he was.
And
got 45 games.
Yeah, not necessarily one of those guys that's going to play every single game, but see him go out there and provide value. He's incredibly valuable within the system because he can go ahead and help mentor a lot of these guys. He can help mentor a Dalton Rushing, a Hunter Fiducia, to get them to a place where they can go ahead and be out there helping with the big league pitching. And offensively wise, it's not a sham with him what he's able to do. He went out there, was able to hit it dead center field home run. I believe had another base hit as well. Don't remember exactly.
Yeah, he had 2 hits today.
Yeah. Okey did a really good job during the game today and was able to showcase himself, which during these spring training moments, I don't know what the opportunity, if any, is going to be him in LA, but it's a really good place to be able to showcase his skills, his tool set that he has as he showcases it not just for the Dodgers, but every other club.
So he played in 45 games last year. He had 165 at bats. So you have to understand the Dodgers make more transactions than any other organization in the world, and it's not even close, okay? Matter of fact, just go to my Billy Gasparino interview, and it kind of makes him giggle. I mean, it's like we make so many transactions, it's hard to keep up with. So why do I say that? Chris Okey is not on the Oklahoma City roster to be the everyday catcher and to compete with Dalton Rushing or Hunter Fiducia. Chris Okey is on the roster to catch 45 games a year and to be there as a third catcher when the Dodgers taxi Hunter Fiducia and bring up Dalton Rushing. And they've made so many moves that they're going, okay, so let me give you an example. There was a game last year where Oklahoma City had exactly 9 position players available. Exactly 9 position players. You want to know who one of them was?
Who is that?
Chris Okey, right? So why is he on the Oklahoma City roster? Because there will be situations to where the Dodgers have – so what the Dodgers do a lot, they call up like a Landon Knack or like a Hunter Fiducia or a Dalton Rushing. It's called taxiing them. They'll taxi them with the big club, although a lot of times they don't even get to play with the big club. So like Gavin Stone did this, for 2 weeks he didn't pitch with anybody because he was taxied with the big club in anticipation in case they needed him. They never ended up needing him, so the big club didn't pitch him, and then Oklahoma City didn't have access to him either. And so there's going to be situations to where AAA Oklahoma City is down to like 9 position players, and Chris Okey is going to be one of them. And so you keep around a guy that has such a great attitude. He's a veteran. He just loves baseball. You're going to have to rip the jersey off of his back to ever get him to quit, that kind of thing. That is very valuable to the Dodgers because, like a Justin Jarvis will be valuable because the first game of last year, Oklahoma City had to pitch a bullpen game, okay? So they're going to need arms that can provide versatility, length, and just be there and readily. I mean, Oklahoma City had to call up 2 or 3 different times guys from the complex to fill in on their roster because they had made so many moves, okay? Who was the guy who kept going back and forth between High A, Great Lakes, and Oklahoma City?
Romero was one.
Yeah, Christian Romero.
Yeah.
Christian Romero. I got to see him twice in Oklahoma City. You got to see him 8 times in Great Lakes because he kept going back and forth between AAA and High A because Oklahoma City just ran out of players because there were so many of them being taxied. That's why Chris Okey's on the roster. And because of that, you root for the guy because he is really just team first all the way. So whenever he can have some individual success with the team mentality he's always shown, you always root for that guy that you're seeing on the screen right here, Chris Okey.
Yeah, no, you absolutely root for these type of guys, and he's incredibly valuable too because the Dodgers, as an organization, because they know that they've dealt with a whole lot of different pitching injuries, they have a lot of pitchers on their roster at each one of their affiliates. A position player pool that they have is a lot smaller than a lot of other teams' position player pool because of limited roster configurations. They have a lot of different arms, as Dave Anderson had to do for years at Great Lakes, try to figure out how to fit all of these different arms in. And that meant that there's 12 or 13 position players. And having a guy like Chris Okey on the roster that can go and help fill in as the Dodgers need him and has the ability to play catcher, incredibly valuable, because you don't want to run into a situation where you don't have a catcher, especially if you need to call guys up. And typically these guys, they don't want them playing catcher every single day in the row in a week. They usually every other day or so, maybe a couple of days in a row. Incredibly valuable. And yeah, no, it's important to have these type of players in your system. I think there's only been maybe a couple of times. There's 1 week, I think 2 years ago in Great Lakes, where they started to run out of position players. And I think Jack Dreyer was the designated hitter for one of those games. So that's a fun game to be able to go look back on the Maytag being designated hitter for the Loons that one game when I don't know what was going on with there. Chris Okey, guy that you root for.
Yeah, we just ended. I think I was playing too much video.
Yeah.